Okay, today is our last day of review of parametrics, and now we're getting into the toughest stuff. You'll need a calculator for this. If you haven't already got your calculator out, please get one out. If you need to borrow one from me, you can come up and borrow one from me. There's one on my desk. Just leave me some collateral. All right, so here is an equation. This one you could not type into your calculator. I just want you to think about that for a second. Do you get that you couldn't type this one in your calculator? Because you'd be in rectangular mode, because we don't have any t's in this. And then, isn't there just a y equals on your calculator? And so, therefore, you couldn't type this, at least not this whole equation. You could solve it for y and then type that in, but I'm not talking about that. You could actually do that. But to get that whole equation in, you'd need some other way to do it. So I'm going to ask you to figure out how, in parametric, we could type this in. Parametric has got an x equals and a y equals, and then you can also limit stuff. Here, I'm going to limit my y because I only want part of the circle. So what do you think I could limit my y as? You want to just say y is greater than 0. All right, I would agree that y is bigger than 0. I'm going to put that. But if I needed something on the top end, do you get it? I could say y is less than whatever this height is, which would be what? 7. Now, I agree. Y is greater than 0 would have been an okay way to say it. Yes?
But when if you graph that, when it always be less than 7, why would you need that?
I wanted to have a limit on both ends because that's what you're going to need on this one. Your t, when you do your parametric, is going to be limited on both ends. That's the way they usually are.
But like, wouldn't the graph always stay below 6?
Yep, it does. And so you're right that it doesn't, for this graph, it doesn't need that 7 on the top end. But if I only had the one end, what I have found is that kids will often think that they only need to limit their t on one end, and then that's not right. We need to have the limit like a sandwich. So, okay. Then, I'm asking you if you can write me the equation in parametric form, and you can test using your calculator right now to try to figure out what needs to go in there. And I hope you remember that sine and cosine are involved. I'm going to pause for a minute while you see if you can figure out what parametric equation with what t limit would make this work. So I gave this hint because a lot of the groups were stuck that they would want to say that x is cosine of t, and at the end, remember, you're going to have to limit your t to get it to only do angles that recreate this. Only half the circle needs to show up. All right, I'm going to pause while you guys work on it further. Okay. What would be wrong with just saying cosine and sine? It would make a circle, but it wouldn't have the right radius, would it? Have you figured out what you should do to make that have a bigger radius? 7 cosine t and 7 sine t. Does that ring bells like r cosine theta? Does that sort of remind you of that? And r sine theta? All right. And so then, if you've got this in your calculator, it's going to make a whole circle. How do you stop it from making the whole circle? Well, t is really the angle, right? That's what this is, cosine of an angle. So if that's an angle, do I want every single angle? No. Do I want it to do pi over 6? Yeah. Do I want it to do pi over 4? Yeah. I want it to do all of these angles up until there, and I want it to stop there at what? All right, so you should have said between 0 and pi. 0 is less than t is less than pi. And when you're on your window screen, get your circle perfectly done so it's showing the top half of the circle on your calculator. And I'm going to come around and make sure your groups have got that part right. All right, so for the kids that weren't getting kind of a circle shape or getting an egg shape, I was suggesting they hit zoom square. But for some kids that does reset their t, you have to go back and mess with your t again to keep it between 0 and pi. All right, I think that's enough on that one. So you're getting the connection that sine and cosine can give you a circle, right? All right, next, an easier one. Let's say that I give you two normal equations that make up a parametric, and I'd like you to tell me if this parametric has to have a limit, and I say it's between -1 and 4, could you rewrite this as not parametric and therefore put it in rectangular form? All right, work with your partner to see if you guys can come up with the right rectangular form. Okay, so you probably solved this one for t. That's what I'm guessing you did, but I don't know. How many of you guys did it that way? That's most of you. Otherwise, could you have solved the other one for t? Sure. You could have solved this and said y minus 5 over 2 equals t. That would have worked also. But either way, you solve one of them for t, and then you stick it in the other one. I personally like the first one to be solved like this. And t is x over 5, and then I can just put an x over 5 right there. So it's y equals 2 times x over 5 plus 5. And that is rectangular. But it doesn't have its limits. So I got to limit it from what to what? Well, you can't just say from -1 to 4. Because do you get that t and x are not the same thing? We just solved a second ago when we figured out that t was x over 5. Do you get what I'm saying? T and x aren't the same. If t was x, then you could just grab these and say that's the limits. So maybe it'd be smart to do a txy chart, but you don't have to. I'm going to show you a different way. A txy chart is a great way to do it. And then I'm going to ask you to find me just these points, -1 and 4. But I'm going to show you another way that would have worked to find the limits, because that is one of the hardest parts. All right, so try to find those 2 points on your txy chart. All right, so looks like most of the groups have already got that done, so I'm going to just jump in and do it. If I put in -1 into the original 2 equations, I'm going to clean this up again and get the original 2 equations back. And now I'm going to put in -1 here and here. Do you get I really don't care about the y? All I really care about is the x. The x comes out to -5. Now, granted, the y, you can do it, and it comes out to 3. Raise your hand if you had that. Same as me. Okay, good. And then the other one, just save me some time. What is it? 2013. All right. Then, what's the important part? It's the x's. The x's go between -5 and 20. Here's a cool way to do it, though. If t was equal to x over 5, which I said right here, then can I put x over 5 right there instead of t? You get what I'm saying? T is x over 5. Now, I do have to solve it, though. So how do I get the x alone? Times by 5, and look at what you get. Back gets times by 5, and you get that. Back gets times by 5, and you get that. So that's another cool way you could have done it. I think it's a little faster than having to make the table. All right. Next, you've got a little quiz that I'm giving in class. Now, for those of you that are at home watching this video, I am posting both the blank version of this if you want to take it at home and the key for it. So you can check your work. I haven't posted the key yet because we're still during the school day here and I have a lot of classes still to take this. You may take it in a group, as in right now you have a partner. Take it with them, bounce it off of them, and then your job for tonight as a way to study for the test, take a moment to grade this quiz and then see how you did. And don't just leave it wrong. I mean, of course, if you have 2 wrong, those are the ones you better look at really closely and fix, because that might be what gets you on the test tomorrow. This is not the same as the test. This has got, similar concepts, but the test questions will be little twists on this. All right. So that's all I have for the video today. You may want to refer to the website and see if you can find the parametrics quiz and the key located there.